It's a creature that's older than mankind itself, short and hairy, rare and elusive. This is C.R.E.W, one of the most endangered animals on the planet, distributed throughout the fragmented rainforests of Southeast Asia. C.R.E.W is one of the Sumatran rhinos that are a very important part of the captive breeding program that is currently being conducted by Dr. Terry Roth.
I've been working for the zoo just over 16 years, and I've pretty much been working with Sumatran rhinos ever since I started here, so I'd say 16 years with those rhinos.
There are 5 different species of rhinos, with the Sumatran rhino being the smallest and hairiest. Normally, a mature Sumatran rhino stands about 5 feet tall, has a body length of around 8 feet, and weighs around 1,500 pounds. Hair can range from dense to scarce and is usually a reddish-brown in color. In the wild, this hair is hard to observe because the rhinos are often covered in mud. In captivity, however, the hair grows out and becomes much shaggier, likely because of less abrasion from walking through vegetation. The rhino has a patch of long hair around the ears and a thick clump of hair at the end of the tail. Like all rhinos, they have very poor vision and a fear of humans, which keeps them alive. There are only 10 Sumatran rhinos in captivity on the planet. Based on research over the last 30 years, there has been a huge decline in the Sumatran rhino population.
The decline of the Sumatran rhino has really probably been a mix of things. Poaching is certainly a huge problem and probably caused the loss of most of the rhinos in Peninsula Malaysia. However, in Indonesia, there hasn't been as much poaching going on. The rhino protection units are doing a great job protecting those rhinos, but we're still seeing a decrease in some of the populations. So we think a lot of it has to do with habitat destruction, encroachment of people into the forests. These animals in the wild, they're very solitary. They don't like to be disturbed, and so if you have a lot of people coming into the forest, then they have less area where they want to live, and they're becoming fragmented and probably not meeting up and breeding as much as they should. You know, it was interesting. Before I started working here, I had just started getting involved with rhino research, primarily working with the African species. And then when I arrived at the Cincinnati Zoo, they had this incredibly valuable endangered species called the Sumatran rhino, and so the emphasis of my work really shifted. And I've really focused most of my time now with the Sumatran rhino because it's so endangered and needs so much help. But it was really an opportunity once I got here. Well, sadly, there are very few Sumatran rhinos left in the wild. We think their numbers are down below 200 now, which is a real unfortunate decrease.
The Cincinnati Zoo is world-renowned for being the only place in the world to breed this species successfully. C.R.E.W is in collaboration with a Sumatran rhino conservation program, whose goal is to keep the rhinos safe in the wild while establishing a successful international captive breeding program. Sumatran rhinos usually live to be about 30 to 40 years old and normally only breed once in captivity. All Sumatran rhino births, whether wild or captive, are important to the breeding program for this critically endangered species. Dr. Roth explains how the Cincinnati Zoo obtained their rhinos.
Emmy and Ipu, they were both captured in Indonesia actually as part of the start of this captive breeding program for the Sumatran rhino. So they were founders that were brought into captivity in the early 1990s, I believe. So they actually come from Indonesia. Then the offspring, Andalas, Harapan, and Suci, were all the calves that were produced by Emmy and Ipu while they were here at the Cincinnati Zoo.
These incredible births made Emmy the most famous rhino in the world because it was the first time in 112 years that a Sumatran rhino successfully reproduced in captivity. A decade ago, little was known about caring for the critically endangered Sumatran rhinos in captivity, let alone their mating habits and reproductive cycles. The C.R.E.W staff has relied on the use of ultrasound, close monitoring of hormone levels, and years of patient observation and trial and error to learn how to successfully breed the Sumatran rhinos.
We are trying to work on artificial insemination for our female rhino here, Suci. We're also trying to help the Indonesians breed some of their females naturally. They have a couple of females. One just recently successfully reproduced. but they have 2 others that have not. Sumatran rhino gestation length is quite long. It's right about 16 months. So once you determine that a female is pregnant, you have a long time to wait. Well, right now we really just want to get this young female pregnant. We've learned that females, once they reach sexual maturation, if they don't breed within about 10 to 15 years, they lose their fertility. So we really need a pregnancy to keep her fertile. And we're also hoping that we're going to be able to import some semen from an unrelated male in Malaysia or Indonesia and produce a genetically valuable offspring in the future. After Su.Chi is inseminated, we usually give her a 2-week break, and then we check her to see if she's pregnant. We can actually detect an embryo in a rhino fairly early on in pregnancy. I really enjoy the animals themselves. Every rhino has its own personality, somewhat similar to like everybody's pet dog. And once you work with an animal real closely, you learn what they're really like. And you really enjoy that time you spend with them. Now, as a scientist, I spend a lot of time at the computer and in the lab. But with this type of work, we do spend a fair bit of time out with the animals as well, and I just enjoy being around them because I'm an animal lover. Probably one of my personal experiences that I will remember quite fondly was the opportunity I had to go out into a forest and actually meet up with a wild Sumatran rhino. Now, I use the term wild kind of loosely because this was a young Sumatran rhino that had wandered out of the forest and was following villagers around. So our rangers were keeping tabs on her and following her and keeping a close eye on her, but she was still classed as wild. She had not been captured yet, and the rangers took us out for an opportunity to check her and to try and do an ultrasound on her in the forest while she was wandering about to see if she was pregnant. And so we did that one day, and that was pretty memorable. She was a pretty interesting rhino. She is now captured, and she is part of the captive breeding program. Su.Chi is on exhibit part of the time at the Cincinnati Zoo. This is actually the only place you can go to see a Sumatran rhino. The reserves with Sumatran rhinos in Indonesia and Malaysia are not open to the public. So if you want to see a Sumatran rhino, the Cincinnati Zoo is your best bet. And Su.Chi isn't on exhibit all the time. It's weather dependent, but she does go out quite a bit in the spring and summer, and you'll usually see her in a mud wallow. The public can always be a big help in bringing awareness to the problem, in making it important for our politicians to support wildlife conservation. They can just help in the way they live their lives, in trying to be green and trying to conserve. That's going to help not just Sumatran rhinos, but really all wildlife species. And the Sumatran rhino is just a flagship for a number of species in the forest that are declining. And of course, we always, a lot of the work we do here at C.R.E.W is supported by donations. So people have an opportunity to help right here in Cincinnati as well.
Su.Chi and her family are amongst the most endangered animals in the world, with only approximately 180 individuals. We all have to come together in an effort to save these beautiful creatures from becoming extinct. More work needs to be done to protect Sumatran rhino habitats, and greater laws need to be made in an effort to prevent poachers from killing them for their horns. 20 years from now, I expect that our kids and grandkids will still have the opportunity to see Su.Chi's relatives. I urge you, the next time that you are in Cincinnati, please pay a visit to Su.Chi at the Cincinnati Zoo. Thank you for watching.